Okay, so it's weird. This one's weird. I don't know why it's called Peril, but it's this is a prayer for somebody who is going through a rough time. And so it came to mind and it jumped into my head because really the last 3-4 days here have been difficult. They've been difficult. And so I'm like, okay, so how do I process it? And then I'm thinking about, do I pretend? Right? So there's a bunch of options when you come onto something like this. Do you pretend? Just go, you know what? I'm going to pretend like nothing happened. We're going to do a regular stream, jump into it. It'll be fine. Or we're talking about, do I just share everything? Just dump the truck. Here's what's going on in my life. And you guys, here's what's happening, and just kind of dump the truck. Would that make me feel better? Or do we, misery together? As in, like, I want you to tell me all your junk and you tell me all your junk and then we misery together. I think that's valid. But I think the way that I wanted to go and what I ended up thinking was, what should a person do if they are going through a really difficult time? What does a prayer look like for someone who's really going through a rough time? And there's, they're in spiritual danger, or they're in physical danger, or they're whatever. What would a prayer look like? Obviously, we have a lot in the Psalms. You can see the Psalms of David as he's, escaping from, whatever he's escaping from. He's always escaping something. He's stressed out. He's afraid. He got being betrayed by people close to him. He's lost. He's hungry. He's, he doesn't know when things are going to get better, even though he knows he's going to be king and things should be fine. They're not right now, and you can see him crying out. Then when he messes up and he kills Bathsheba's husband and then sleeps with her, and he repents. You see like just the psalms of repentance, and then his son kind of chases him down and whatnot. Like he was through a lot, and you can kind of see through the psalms the prayers that he does and the way that he processes those emotions. And so this is a Puritan devotional prayer thing that it's not scripture. It's written by somebody who's gone through a tough time and is calling upon God in their own way. And so I thought it'd be interesting to work our way through this from a thematic point of view, and also from a, why would you say that sort of, kind of taking it apart. So we'll do it together. I'll read the whole thing, and then we'll come back through it. It says this: Sovereign Commander of the universe, I am sadly harassed by doubts, fears, unbelief, in a felt spiritual darkness. My heart is full of evil surmisings and disquietude, and I cannot act faith at all. My heavenly pilot has disappeared, and I have lost my hold on the rock of ages. I sink in deep mire beneath storms and waves, in horror and distress unutterable. Help me, O Lord, to throw myself absolutely and wholly on Thee, for better, for worse, without comfort, but all but hopeless. Give me peace of soul, confidence, enlargement of mind, morning joy that comes after night heaviness. Water my soul richly with divine blessings. Grant that I may welcome Thy humbling in private, so that I might enjoy Thee in public. Give me a mountaintop as high as the valley is low. Thy grace can melt the worst sinner, and I am as vile as he. Yet Thou hast made me a monument of mercy, a trophy of redeeming power. In my distress, let me not forget this. All-wise God, Thy never-failing providence orders every event, sweetens every fear, reveals evil's presence lurking in seeming good, brings real good out of seeming evil, makes unsatisfactory what I set my heart upon, to show me what a short-sighted creature I am, and to teach me to live by faith upon Thy blessed self. Out of my sorrow and night, give me the name Naphtali, satisfied with favor. Help me to love Thee as Thy child, and to walk worthy of my heavenly pedigree. So we're gonna go through this together, because I think there's probably more than a couple people here who have been through these kind of feelings, who connects. And yeah, dragon, right? Dragons for someone like me. This is sort of the feelings that someone gets if you're a Christian. It's like sometimes the stereotype is that Christians should always be happy. Christians should always be, willing to like if anything bad happens, they need to immediately say, well, this is God's plan, this is God's idea, this is exactly what's supposed to happen, therefore I will, this is the day the Lord has made, I will rejoice, I choose to, we're going to rejoice in all things. And the idea of going through grief, sadness, fear, doubt, unbelief, all the rest of that stuff is like, it's almost unutterable. We've talked about this over the last couple of years many times, and just saying, like in so many small groups and so many in so many small groups and so many churches and so many different ways that Christians get together, there's this unspoken rule that says that you shouldn't go too deep, you shouldn't bring the group down, that if you're going through a bad time, that other people will be upset with you. Like you can't do that. And so therefore I want to go through this and as an acknowledgement first to say, we all go through this. I'm going through it. We go through it. There are people here going through it. And as a universal sort of applicable prayer to be able to say, this is something we could say when we go through it, so that we can identify with Christians throughout the ages and followers of God throughout the millennia who have been through a tough time, but are doing it with faith. What does that look like? Okay, let's sovereign commander of the universe is how it starts. And that to me is such a powerful beginning, right? Sovereign commander of the universe. That's who he's praying to. And I love the fact that in each of these different prayers, you have a different address, a different start. And this one is sovereign commander of the universe, as in this person's going through a bad time, right? And so he's praying, he's going, the one who's in charge of everything, everywhere, the one who nothing can do anything bad without going through him first, like that he really is the one who controls all things and all power is his. Like that's who I'm talking to, the most powerful being anywhere. That being, okay, I am harassed by doubts, fears, unbelief in a felt spiritual darkness. I that's such a powerful start, right? I am sadly harassed. The word harassed, it keeps coming, it keeps hurting, it keeps coming up. It's not this one-time thing where you're like, oh, that was no good, and then you move on and you forget about it. No, I am harassed. Like the doubts keep coming up. I squish them, and I say, no, this is not true. This isn't right. This isn't the way to go. And then they come back up. Fears, like I go and I pray about it and I go talk about it and I ask for help about it. And then the fear comes back, right? Unbelief is like, I sit here and I have doubts. Yeah. Like a broken record. Yeah. Like I have these doubts and I'm not sure if, is God good? Is God kind? Is God on my side? Am I saved? Is he real? How can he be real? And how can I be his child if I'm going through this? And then you go, no, I understand what scripture says. And it just keeps coming back. That's felt spiritual darkness, right? That instead of living, in the light of the truth, instead of living under the light of Jesus, instead of being bright and everything, having hope and seeing the future, it's just dark. The spiritual darkness. And I think, man, I know this feeling. I know this feeling for sure, especially the repetitive nature. And if you've ever had mental health issues, or you've been through depression, or you've been through some kind of difficult trauma or grief or whatever, what it's like to have thought after thought after, just keep tumbling through your head. You try to go to bed and it's always there. You wake up in the morning, it's the first thought in your mind. You try to distract away, you try to pray it away, you try to journal it away. And there's this pervasive thought pattern that just you can't get rid of. And it's driving you into darkness. One sec. Wow, I'm super distracted today. I'm having a hard time concentrating. That's part of it too, right? That when you're really going through a rough time, your brain is mush, man. It's just pudding. Okay, we'll keep going. My heart is full of evil surmisings and disquietude, and I cannot act faith at all. That is such a a powerful sentence, right? My heart, in this spiritual darkness, as I'm sitting here in dark, my heart is full of evil surmisings, right? Surmisings, thoughts and plans and like ideas, and how do I get out of this, and maybe this is what's happening, and it's none of it's that positive, right? None of it is this is God's plan. This is God's with me. He'll work this out. He'll rescue me. I have friends, I have family and whatnot. I just have to ride this out and go through this, because this isn't the end. Like, it's if I just destroy my life, if I just get that divorce, if I just scream at these people, if I go and I quit my job, if I go, I'm done. I'm never going to church again. I'm done. I'm never going to be talking to, Christians again. I'm just so done with all of that, just because just evil surmisings and disquietude, right? One of the gifts of God is a quiet spirit, one that isn't always shouting and yelling and pulling and arguing with the flesh, right? There are moments where you have this quiet in your heart that allows you to concentrate. You feel as though you're grounded, you're standing firm, and yet there are times where your brain is just going a mile a minute and you've got disquietude. It's always noisy in your head, to the point where you cannot act faith at all. That phrase, act faith, right? I can't make myself do the Christian stuff right now. I can't make myself do the connection to God thing. I can't make myself pray or read the Bible, or I can't, I just can't do it. I think of Charles Spurgeon. I'm going to refer back to the book Spurgeon's Sorrows, because I think of his story a lot, because it sort of mimics mine in some ways, except for I'm not him, but when he was a young man called to ministry, he was very popular. People knew who he was very young. He would go through, he'd go to churches and people would come. He was known as sort of a good preacher and a good leader. And so there was when he was really starting to take off, and this is as a very young man, right? He had the first son of megachurch. They built him a big church and like for his church and his people. And when he stood there, there would be, I can't remember how many, it's like 5,000 people or something. Like, a huge amount of people were around, and it would be in different layers, right? There'd be the bottom, and then there'd be like a balcony and whatever. And as he's preaching, some moron in the crowd screams fire, and just people panic and they go rushing out the door. And in the rushing and in the they're trying to get away, they're stepping on each other and pushing each other out of the way, and some people died. He was there. They'd come to see him, and during his sermon, people died because and you have to think, like, I don't know what was going on in his head, but is this because I wanted to have all these people here? Is that me? Should I have said no? Should I have stayed small? Is this how much of this is my fault, right? How can I possibly call myself a preacher if the people with here are going to panic immediately during a sermon that I'm talking about? How can I call myself a Christian if people die right in my presence with me, and it's my, and those thoughts, that disquietude, those fears, that doubt starts taking over, and he hit a depression that was catastrophic. And it wouldn't be the first time or the last time that he went through it. In fact, throughout his life, he would go through times where things were fine and then he'd just crash, and then things were fine, he'd just crash. And he talks about the act of faith. He says, there are times in his life where he is so down that Charles Spurgeon, the nicknamed Prince of Preachers, couldn't pick up a Bible. Every time he looked at the Bible, it was just fear, guilt, shame, anger, just he couldn't even look at one. It would just cause him to feel, that gut tension and that sadness all over again. He couldn't get into the pulpit. He couldn't, he couldn't leave his room. There were times where he would just be in his room for a week at a time. I think I'm trying to remember how long, but it was definitely for a very long time. He'd be missing church and whatnot, and he couldn't act faith at all, right? Eventually, it was between his wife and his friends and his elders and whatever, and of course the movement of God and prayers. He'd emerge. He'd go back down to the pulpit, and he would continue to preach. He'd start his seminary. He'd start his the various care ministries. Like, it was really, really, really difficult for him during periods of time, right? And I think it gives me hope. It gives me sort of permission to be able to say that, the level of guilt that I would feel because I couldn't that day. And I mean, there are lots of people here who know that feeling, right? That idea of I can't today. I want to, but I can't. The showering and eating cereal is literally all I've got in the tank. That's it. The rest of it's just me feeling crappy. That's all I've got left. And the idea of, exercise and prayer and talking to your friend and going out for coffee and going for a walk outside and stuff like that it's just too hard. Knowing other people go through this, that they cannot act their faith, that other people hit that wall, allows me to go, this is not, just not just me. Like, I don't have to have the guilt, the shame, the fear that God is mad at me, that I'm the only one who can't suck it up, right? That many others and good Christian people have gotten to the place where they couldn't suck it up anymore, right? Let's keep going. My heavenly pilot has disappeared, and I have lost my hold on the Rock of Ages. Both, scriptural words. Or I don't know. Pilot. I'm trying to think through pilot. I know what a pilot is. A pilot. The person who's in charge and flying. The one who's actually in charge of the plane. I'm just trying to think of if it's a Bible word or not. If I go KJV, pilots in the KJV. Yeah, I mean, pilots mean pilot. There you go, right? And the Rock of Ages, right? The one who's in charge of his life, the one who's flying his plane, right? Yeah, well, that's it. The one who, exactly, the one who's supposed to be taking care of things and cruising and making sure that he's in the right spot. Like, the whole Jesus is my co-pilot thing, but Jesus is the pilot and I'm just passenger. Need some prayers. She's streaming right now, so I may hop into hers for a while. Her grandma going to a memory center. That's rough. Yeah, okay. If she needs some encouragement, let me know. Come back, and if she's still on or she whatever, we can raid her and come say hello. So yeah, by all means, go and show her some care. Pineapple says, I have felt like that at times. Can't read the Bible. It ends up sobbing either because it reminds me of God's love, reminds me of how it should be, or makes me wonder that if I'm the exception, God is not blessing. Just feelings of guilt. Yeah. I mean, the same thing with listening to Christian radio or listening to, listening to a hymn or whatever. Someone comes up and says, "Let me pray for you." I don't know. I've been in a place where I've had someone put their hand on my shoulder and they want to pray for me, and I've just been mad. Get that off. I don't want that. I don't know. Like a bunch of hypocritical nonsense that you're going to be spouting into my ear that you think you're going to fix me, and like all this stuff comes pouring out, right? And it's just difficult. Lost my hold on the Rock of Ages, that as in the foundation. I feel like the pilot of the ship, right? Yeah, and good point. Probably have a ship, right? And so his boat is rocking, and the Rock of Ages that he's supposed to be anchored towards, it let go, and now he's sinking in deep mire beneath storms and waves in horror and distress unutterable, right? He feels like he's been knocked out of his ship. The pilot is not there. He has no firm footing. The storms and the waves of sadness and grief and fear and anxiety and whatever just keeps crashing to the point where he's underwater, terrified, and so much so he can't speak, right? I think Anybody who's been through really, really big grief, or through abuse, or through some kind of major trauma, knows what it's like to feel like you're just, you're in space and there's no footing, there's no nothing, it's just dark, and you feel like there's nothing you can do, right? That's what we're talking about here. Help me, O Lord. So that now we turn, right? So we learn his situation, and let's just pause to say, it is perfectly valid for you to be talking to God about your situation. Perfectly, because remember, he's bringing this to God, right? He's describing his situation to the Father, to God, saying, listen, and this is a weird prayer to say to God, like, God, the one who is sovereign commander of the universe, I have doubt, I have fear, I'm not sure I believe anymore. Jesus is the light, I'm in the dark. Your like your spirit inside is supposed to be fighting against all the evil, surmising, and disquietude. Where's that? God, did you leave me? Rock of Ages, did you fail me? One who can calm the storms and calm the waves with a word, why aren't you? And why do I have to be terrified if you are with me, right? He's talking to God about this. It is absolutely valid for you to talk to God, pray to God, and share the really deep stuff. I think sometimes when we come to prayer, we couch our language, and I don't mean public prayer, I mean private prayer. Like even then we're like, well, I can't say that to God, and I better not write it that, I better not use that word, I shouldn't use any kind of, foul language, I shouldn't use any, shouldn't be complaining all the time. I shouldn't be, it shouldn't be too negative. I should, make sure that I, talk about positive stuff, because, God, that's who he likes. And that's not true. He wants us to share all the things with him, right? Just everything, and be okay with just sharing, using that low language, losing that guttural feeling, just being upset, and just talking to God about how much it hurts. And you don't need to end with, and I'm sure you'll make it all better, and I'm sure it'll be fine, and then you get up and you're supposed to feel better. This is not a prayer where you end up feeling better at the end. It's just one where you're bringing it all to God. Sometimes it's a long process, takes a while. So now it turns to the request. Right? Help me, O Lord, to throw myself absolutely and wholly on thee, for better, for worse, without comfort, and all but hopeless. Right? So we, in light of the, pilot disappearing, Rock of Ages being gone. Thanks for the lurk, appreciate it. Right? He says, help me to throw myself absolutely on thee. So in other words, in the midst of these waves crashing, help me grab onto you. And I don't care what happens after that, for better, as in if you make everything better, then great. If everything gets worse, then you know what? I'll still hold on to you, even if you're not going to bring comfort to me. Yeah, I'm in absolute hopelessness. Just help me, because I don't have the energy. I can't do the Christian thing right now. Help me to just fall on you, to throw myself just and say, I am nothing. I have nothing left. I have no wisdom. I have no faith. I have no understanding. I have no friends. I have no nothing. Let me throw myself upon you, because what else can I do? Wolfcat says, I think the part where he says guide caught my eye, because he's not just our leader, but also our guide. I always forget that pilot. Yeah. Give me peace of soul, confidence, enlargement of mind, morning joy that comes after night heaviness. So he's requesting, right? This is the ask. God, he's disquiet. He wants peace of soul. He feels like he has absolutely he has no strength, no idea what he's doing. Help him have confidence. And that's not self-confidence so he can solve his own problems, but he's an absolute lack of confidence in everything. He's a lack of confidence in the church, in his pastor, in counselors, in in his nation, in friends. He lack of confidence in faith, lack of confidence in himself, lack of confidence in God. Like he's just like there, nothing can help. Give me that peace of soul and let me remember that there is something out there that can help. Enlarge my mind so that I can not be so linearly focused all the time. Yo!
Excited to be here for another month. Keep up the great work at XtianNinja.
Thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate that. Shadow Tuner, 14 months. That's so cool. Thank you, my dude. Very, very kind. I'll try to keep it up. But yeah, give me peace of soul, confidence, enlargement of mind. The enlargement of mind to be able to say, help me to come with bigger ideas because I have nothing in my mind. Help me to see this from a different perspective. Help me to understand solutions from a different perspective. Help me get a bigger picture of what you're doing here because I can only see the dark. Show me more. Give me, and this is a big one, morning joy that comes after night heaviness, right? It could be, it sounds like it's a nighttime prayer, right? Like I've been miserable all night long. I've been miserable all day long. And I'm coming to bed with just heaviness of heart and totally wrecked. I ask you, God, that tomorrow morning when I wake up, that I might be able to see joy. Help me see light. Help me see something good. Help the coffee taste good. Help me to feel more positive, to see something that brings me hope. God, help morning joy come. Give me that, please. Right? That's the prayer. Water my soul richly with divine blessings. Right? It's just I'm so dry. Right? Like my spirit is dry. Please pour your blessings on me. I can't. I don't know where to go and I'm so cracked and dry. I need you. Grant that I might welcome thy humbling in private so that I can enjoy thee in public. And this is an interesting line because it's basically saying, if there's something I've contributed to this, right? If there's something that I need to do, or if you're just working in my heart to make me more dependent on you, or make me be able to understand someone else in a better way, or whatever you're doing to humble me, help me welcome it in private so that I'm not miserable outside. I'm not, casting bitterness everywhere. I'm not pulling other people into my vortex of sadness. But to recognize that in private, I'm feeling pretty gross. Help me welcome that this is something you're doing so that when I step out of this and I walk into public, I might be able to see that light, right? So that I can enjoy who God is in the world, right? That my prayer closet is rough right now, but when I step out of my prayer closet, I can see positivity, I can see light, I can see good, and I'm not sucking people into my misery, right? The maelstrom that is happening in me isn't hurting others, but I know that I still have to work through some stuff. Give me a mountaintop give me a mountaintop as high as the valley is low, right? I think that's a good prayer, right? Like if you could, God, I'm asking, right, that as miserable as I am, can you, when we recover, should I recover, can you give me a mountaintop, give me joy that balances out this misery? And I don't think that's a bad thing to ask for. Like if God is a good God, and God, the Bible says that, he's a good father. He knows what we need. He's willing to be generous. Then I don't think it's invalid for us to say, God, the misery that I'm feeling right now, I recognize it, and I'm going through it. Meet me in it, and let me see what's going on here, and that not be wasted. That I might become a more spiritual, more kind, more humble person. But after that, please bring me to that mountaintop high, because I want to feel that sense of worship, that sense of elation, that knowledge of beauty, that connection to you that goes beyond human understanding, and just that I want to connect in that way. Give that to me as a comparison, or as a payment, I guess, for how miserable things are right now. Like grace can melt the worst sinner, and I am as vile as he, right? He's recognizing that he's got that part of his problem, and the reason for a lot of the stuff up previous is because it's sin, right? The reason he's faithless, the reason he's miserable, the reason he can't see, the reason he feels like he let go of God and that God let him down and stuff is not because that happened. It's because he's got sin in his heart. He's pulling towards the flesh. Help me see grace from you, right? Like give me that which I don't deserve to melt whatever walls and whatever stuff is in the way, because as bad as we look out into the world, and this is a really interesting comparison, right? If we say who's the vilest of sinners, right, we kind of go, well, it's people out there that are, murdering babies or sucking people into addiction or like cause genocide or stealing the money from the poor that is supposed to be helping them. Like they're vile people. After a time of misery and a time of maturing and humbling, a Christian often will go, man, I am nowhere near as spiritual or put together or as I thought I was. All the sins that I thought I'd gone over, I'm suddenly contemplating them all. I found all brand new horrible things inside of me I didn't even know was there. I really do have more to go. This person might be obvious in their sin, but there's so much more inside of me, right? That's what he's saying. Help me in that by your grace. Yet thou hast made me a monument of mercy, a trophy of redeeming power, right? You've saved me. That's what it said. I might be a mess, but God, in your grace, you made me a monument of mercy. You didn't give me the punishment I deserved, a trophy of redeeming power. In other words, when people look at me, they can see, right, that the only reason I can have faith and the only reason I can do anything of value is because God's doing something. It's like I'm a trophy on his shelf, and when people walk by, they look at it and they go, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. And it's pointing to how great God is, not how great the trophy is, right? I'm just pointing at how good God is, and anything you see good in me is just a reflection of him, right? In all my distress, let me not forget this. All-wise God, thy never failing providence orders every event. In other words, as he's processing this evil and the misery that he's in, he says, help my mind to come back to, true north, back to the guide that, you're talking about, and say, help me to recognize and never forget that God is always in charge. His providence is never failing. He provides, right? He's in charge. He gives, he does everything. His never failing providence, his control orders every event, right? That everything that happens is something that he has his hands in, that he can use, that he can do something with, even if it's miserable. And I keep going back to this phrase because it's so important. Remember that, like, the worst thing that ever happened in history, the murder of the innocent Son of God, the most perfect being ever, the most beautiful, wonderful person that's ever existed, was murdered. The very person of God, that was the worst thing that ever happened in history, right? It was, and yet it is also the best thing that ever happened in history. It was what saved us. It's what brought us to salvation. It what gave us a path to be able to be redeemed, to come to God, right? And in the same way, God can take the worst things in our life that we would never guess could have value, right? Something really terrible that happened to you, or something terrible you've done and that you've been forgiven for, or that you've worked through, or that something, and that you're like, that there's no way that could be a value to God. He's going to have to delete that part from my life. And God, in saving you, in redeeming you, says, no, I'm going to take that worst thing and I'm going to turn it into something that is your strength, or is unique to you, that lets you minister to people who otherwise couldn't be, who you can understand in a way that nobody else can. And I'm going to give you a heart for people that other people don't have a heart for. You a compassion for people other people don't have a compassion for. I'm going to use you to help people like you because of what you've done. I can redeem that so much. No, it doesn't get rid of the sin as far as like how terrible it was, but God's able to redeem it, right? Sweetens every fear. that every fear, isn't as bad as it could be, because God is a part of all of it. Reveals evil's presence lurking in seeming good. I love that. That's the Spirit of God. And this is the look out and you're like, oh, that seems like a good idea, right? And the Spirit of God like goes inside. It's like you feel that little Geiger counter go, or like you get a little wobble on thing. You're like, something's weird over there, something hinky, or in that relationship, in that connection, in that business, in that job, in that that thing you're gonna get, like whatever it is. Like God's Spirit is revealing evil to you in something that seems good, whether it be that relationship, or whether it be a decision you're about to make, or something that isn't good for you but you've decided is going to be good. God's working on it. Oh, bummer. Well, keep in mind that when I'm done stream here, you can help me, and maybe I can go over there and raid her. Make unsatisfactory what I set my heart upon, to show me what a short-sighted creature I am. Right? One of God's gifts is that the things of earth, the comforts of this planet, are unsatisfactory, because they will ultimately let us down. That all the things we have our heart set upon, whether it be money, or friends, or relationship, or our church, or our whatever it is the thing that we think is our foundation that suddenly is unsatisfactory. It's not enough. This person that I count on, my mom, my dad, my kid, my like my friend, my whatever, if they're gone, and that's bad, but they weren't everything. They couldn't be everything. They were not satisfactory to save and hold me together. That's a gift of God, a recognition of that, to show me what a short-sighted creature I am, right? That the sin, or the thing that I think is going to be so helpful, right, that's going to keep my heart together, it's not. I think it will somehow. And teach me to live by faith upon thy blessed self. Out of my sorrow and night, give me the name Naphtali, satisfied with favor. I don't remember who Naphtali is in the Bible. I didn't look it up. But if it means satisfied with favor, right? Out of my sorrows and night, in the darkness, make me feel and understand satisfaction, knowing I'm a person of God. I'm a child. Help me to love thee as a child. I have favor from God, and to walk worthy of my heavenly pedigree. And so this is the last line, right? I say amen. And as I stand up, and as I move forward, the misery that I'm in, and I've asked God to help me tomorrow, when I wake up, help me as I step into life to recognize my heavenly pedigree, which it doesn't mean, how super spiritual I am, or how great I'm supposed to be, or how wonderful as a Christian is supposed to be, so joyful. It's just to say, help me remember that my family is the family of God, and that I've been adopted as a child of God, that my future is in heaven. I'm more than a conqueror because of what Jesus did. As I step forward, help me remember that, right? Help me remember that I'm God's kid. He adopted me. He chose me. He saved me, right? I didn't pick him. He came to me. Help me to walk worthy of the fact, and help my mind, and all the things I've been praying about, remind me of my position before you, so that everything else in this world and all the misery looks smaller, right? Looks like it's supposed to be, so I can see your light again, because I have that light inside me. Tiny. I think we're good then. All right, shall we? Something there's killing itself, so that's good. We'll just wait. What are you doing over there, buddy? He hurt himself. He died. Someone in there died. Yay. Ah, crud.